They sailed down and actually anchored just off of this point right here. Restoration Point is where they are. They're in May 1792. They set up their ship there. Vancouver sends 2 small boats, ore boats, south down the Sound.
Chances are you already know that Puget Sound was named by British explorer George Vancouver. And you probably already know who he named it for.
And the person who is in charge is one of his lieutenants, Peter Puget. So Puget and 10 men, they go, they explore down there, they come back to the boat, and Vancouver writes in his journal, to honor his exertions, I named this place Puget's Sound.
But there's so much more to know about Puget Sound. Beneath the surface,
the average depth of the Sound is about 200 feet. The deepest spot's just north, it's about 900 feet. So we're an incredibly deep body of water.
And above the surface too.
So I just love being on the water. There's just so many little nooks and crannies that I visited that I just felt it's a special place.
David B. Williams, known for his earlier book about Seattle regrades called Too High and Too Steep, is author of a new volume about the history of Puget Sound called Homewaters. Williams says that, geologically speaking, Puget Sound is young. Only about 16,000 years have passed since it was carved by massive glaciers.
The ice also acts as a big rake, scraping the land into a series of parallel north-south trending ridges and valleys. So if you go through Seattle, for example, if you go east-west, you're going up and down, north-south, relatively easy.
Before Seattle commuters struggled with those hills or serenely traveled over the salt water, Puget Sound's depth meant diversity of sea life, birds, and mammals.
I mean, this is a very deep place. So deep canyons and lots of wildlife down there. And that's part of the story of the Sound, is the amazing array of wildlife. People have been here for 13,000 years, which is amazing to think. Just after the end of the Ice Age, within 2,000, 3,000 years of the ice moving out, the land has been scraped barren by the ice, and so it retreats back, and people come in very soon afterwards. A completely different looking landscape than what we have right now.
People like the Denny Party, who founded what became Seattle, and similar groups of non-native settlers in other communities, depended on Puget Sound as a water link to each other and to the rest of the world. But that was nothing new.
It's not just water, it's a way of life, it's an existence.
Indigenous author and educator Philip Red Eagle has helped organize journeys in traditional canoes, which gives its own water-level perspective on Puget Sound.
We learned a lot when we got into the canoes. You get a closer look at everything. You know, when you're zipping by in a powerboat, you don't get that. When you're paddling it makes a big difference, you know, because you're paddling through, you know, seal poop and, you know, everything that, you know, the plastic and everything.
Along with canoes, Indigenous people also had names for geographic features for thousands of years. Nowadays, many of Vancouver's names are being reconsidered. Puget Sound was previously known as Woolwich. Should that name return?
Well, we're working on it. Well, we call it Sailor Sea now. We don't call it Puget Sound. And we were aware that things were randomly named, you know, so that they could fit their perceptions into it.
It turns out that even the word sound has a certain outsider connotation.
It's sort of a Norwegian and English derivation that basically means a body of water. And it doesn't actually have an official definition, like a bay or an inlet. And it seems to be a term that was really preferred by British explorers like Vancouver, like James Cook.
And maybe what it's called is not as important as how we take care of it. European settlers treated Puget Sound as a highway and a source for food, as Indigenous people had for millennia. But settlers also used it as a dumping ground for runoff and other waste.
If you've been living here for 6,000 years, you have to, at some point in that 6,000 years, you have to realize that there has to be a reciprocal relationship going on. Otherwise, it's going to destroy.
I would argue, and I'm not alone, is that the Sound's in better shape now than it's been in decades. A lot of regulations have been passed that limit the dumping of toxins. We're not harvesting animals the way we used to. So the Sound is actually in better shape than it's been. And I think, to me, one of the goals of the book was to come away with a sense of hope.
Watch CityStream Tuesday nights at 7 on the Seattle channel, or find us anytime online at seattle.gov.